Welcome to Lunch with the Lord. I'm Pastor Mark. We are in Ruth chapter 2. We're continuing our thoughts in verse 14 this lesson. But before we begin, Jeremiah 15:16. Thy words were found, and I did eat them. And thy word was unto me the joy and the rejoicing of my heart. Now, as we saw last lesson, we're going to continue the same thought from last lesson into the beginning of this lesson. And it says here in verse 14, and Boaz said unto her, at mealtime, come here and eat of the bread and dip your morsel in the vinegar. And she sat beside the reapers, and he reached her parched corn, and she did eat, and she was sufficed, and she left. And we said last lesson that everything that basically the context of verse 14 is that it's lunchtime. Whatever time of day that was, we don't know. But Ruth went to the field early in the morning, and she was gleaning. And now it seems that everybody, the reapers and the maidens and all the gleaners are taking a lunch break. And so they go to the place wherever the lunch break is going on. And Ruth doesn't have to provide her own. She didn't take a bag lunch with her. And she doesn't have to take of what she gleaned, but Boaz has provided everything for her there. Boaz has provided the corn and the vinegar and everything for her to eat. And it's just like with God. God provides for us the things that we need while we're here on earth, going through the trials and tribulations, while we go through this life and endure this life until we enter into eternity. And the provisions are given by God. He paid the price. Like Boaz, he flipped the cost of the vinegar and the parched corn and whatever they had for lunch. That was on Boaz's tab. Well, same thing. What we need in this earth to survive and to continue to be a testimony unto God in this life, everything's provided. Jesus paid the tab. Well, if you need grace and you need peace and patience and kindness and joy, that's all on Jesus' tab. Jesus is saying, put it on my bill, Dad. Right? And but it's all provided for. You don't have to provide it. You don't have to work for it. It's all there. Now in 2 Corinthians chapter 9 and verse 8, it says here, and God is able to make all grace abound toward you, that ye always, having all sufficiency in all things, may abound to every good work. Now, this all sufficient, the context here is that Paul is encouraging them to give money to provide. Verse 7 says, as every man according as he purposes in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loves a cheerful giver. He's talking about giving monetary help to help out the saints. So the context of verse 8 here is talking about that if we give money and provide money to help believers out, to help people out, God will in turn provide for us. So he says here, and God is able to make all grace abound towards you, that you, having all sufficiency in all things, may abound to every good work. Okay? And here, the Greek word for sufficiency, having all sufficiency, is autarkia. And it means to be content. It means to be satisfied with what a person has. So he says, God is able to make all grace abound towards you, that you, always having all contentment, having everything you need, being content, being satisfied with what you have. Okay? And this same Greek word is seen in 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 6. It says, godliness with what? Contentment is great gain. Godliness with contentment is great gain. Listen, are you content with the things that you have? Right? You see, everything you have has been given to you from the hand of God. Are you content with the house you live in? Are you content with the car you have? Or maybe you don't have a car. Are you content not having a car? Are you content with the clothes that you have? Are you watching TV and watching people with better clothes and better cars, and you're envying and being jealous, right? Listen, be content with what you have. Why? Because what you have at this time, at this very time, the things that you have are given to you from the hand of God. Proverbs chapter 30, verses 8 and 9. It says, remove far from me vanity and lies. Give me neither poverty nor riches, and feed me with food that is convenient for me. So he says here, in Proverbs here, he says, God, don't give me poverty. Don't let me be poor, and don't let me be rich. He says, feed me with the food that is convenient for me. And this word convenient here means of my allowance, like my daily bread. Jesus said, give us this day our daily bread. That's what we're supposed to pray. When the disciples said, Jesus, teach us how to pray, that was one thing Jesus said. God, give us our daily bread. Jesus didn't say, when you pray to God, ask for gold and jewels and diamonds and ask God to provide for you with an abundant supply that'll last you for 15 years. Right? No. Jesus said, when you pray to God, one thing that you should ask from God is that God provides for you daily. Daily. You know, we want God to give us, a truckload so that we got enough to last us for a couple months, right? God, give me a truckload of bread, right? No, Jesus said, give us our daily bread, not our monthly or yearly bread. Verse 9. Why? Why, God? Don't let me be poor and don't let me be rich. Why? Lest I be full, lest I have a full belly and I deny you and say, who is the Lord? Or lest I be poor and I steal and take the name of God in vain. You know, most people want to be rich, to have more than what they have now. But there's a danger in accumulating possessions. Jesus didn't say that if you could have a better job, don't do it. No, Jesus didn't say, if you can afford better food, don't buy it. No, if you can, that's fine. If you can get a better job, get a better job. If you can go to school and better yourself so that you can make more money, well, then do it. There's nothing wrong with that. But the problem comes in where we want to be rich, and the writer here in Proverbs said, "Don't let me, lest I be full, and I deny you, God, or unless I have so much riches, and I'm a bad testimony unto you. I forget you." Right? And be content with what God has given to you today. This is what God wants us to do. He wants us to be content with what he's given to us. He loves us and he cares for us. Well, why doesn't he give me better this and better that? Well, it's like the children of Israel in the wilderness, right? We're sick of this manna. Day after day, the manna. And yet it was God's provision, and God wanted them to be content with it. The manna had everything in it that they needed for life. It had all the vitamins and minerals and everything in that manna. And yet they couldn't be content with it. Why? Because our sinful flesh, it can't be content with the things of God. And so this is why they cried out for more. We gotta have meat. So God gave them quail meat. And God wants us to learn to be content with the things that we have, because they're from the hand of God. Turn to Ecclesiastes chapter 2. I love Ecclesiastes. There's a lot of tremendous truths in Ecclesiastes, things that will benefit you. But Ecclesiastes chapter 2, starting at verse 24, it says, "There is nothing better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw, that it was what? That it was from the hand of God." It was from the hand of God. Solomon here was the richest man that ever lived. Even today, he was the richest man in the history of this world. He had everything. I mean, he made silver like it was rocks on the ground. He made silver in Israel so plentiful. It was like pebbles on the ground around. It was so numerous, so much of it. So he says here, there is nothing better for a man than that he should simply just eat and drink, right? And that he should make his soul enjoy his labor. Be happy with the job you have. If you can better yourself, yes, do it. If you can get a different job, do it. He's not saying, stay where you are till the rest of your life and endure it. No, if you can go out and make more money or get a better job, do that. But enjoy your labor. This also I saw, that it was from the hand of God. For who can eat, or who else can hasten hereunto more than I? Verse 26, right? Verse 26 says, "For God gives to a man that is good in his sight wisdom." God gives to him what? God gives to a man that is good in his sight wisdom. All right? And knowledge and joy. But to the sinner he gives what? Travail to gather and to heap up. And that he may give to him that is good before God. This also is vanity and vexation of spirit. Verse 26 gives the true riches of God are wisdom and knowledge and joy. This is what we should be rich in. Don't be envious that you don't have diamonds or gold or silver. Look, there are many people, who are rich, which have no joy and no contentment. You may say, yeah, I know that. I've heard of that before, but I still want to be rich, right? Well, look, I'm sure we've all said that too. Yeah, I know, but I'll never be discontented. I'll never be sad or depressed if I've got billions of dollars, right? I know how to make myself joy. If they can't do it, well, that's their problem. I know how to make myself happy with millions, right? Listen, I'm telling you, there are many rich people who have no joy and no contentment. They're a slave to their money. And the more they got, the more they worry, the more they try to hang on to it, and the more it just eats at their soul. As Ruth was satisfied and content with Boaz's provisions for her, so each Christian should be satisfied and content with God's provisions for them, right? God's provisions, not only on this earth, your job, your money. He said, if you have food and you have a job and you have food, be happy. Be happy with what God's provided with you for you today. And God will continue to give in the future. But don't be grasping at things that are beyond you. And don't be, bogging your soul, your spiritual life down, your relationship with God down because you're envious of other people, and secretly, you want more things, and you're maybe secretly a little bit disappointed that God hasn't given them to you because, you would use them better for the glory of God. Maybe you would. Maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you'd be like Proverbs. Don't make me rich, don't make me poor. Because if I'm poor, once my belly is full, I may forget God, walk away. Once I'm rich, I may deny God. So he says here, and she sat beside the reapers, and he reached her parched corn. Now, it says here first, at the beginning of verse 14, it says, and Boaz said unto her, at mealtime, come thou hither. All right. Now, one commentator, because here it says that it almost sounds like, in the King James Version, it almost sounds like what Boaz is saying is, when it's dinner time, come here and eat with us. Okay. That's what it's kind of implying. But one commentator said, and I believe it's true, he said that what it should say is, at mealtime, Boaz said to her, which is more along of what it should probably say. At mealtime, Boaz said to her. It means at lunchtime, this is what Boaz said to her. It wasn't like Boaz said to her, hey, at dinner time, come here and I'll provide all these things for you. No, she was already there. Everybody was already there at lunchtime. So at mealtime, Boaz said to her, all right? And he said to her, eat of the bread and dip your morsel in the vinegar. Now, vinegar here was a sour wine. And sour wine was used as a kind of sauce to dip food into, bread and things. Dip your food into this sour wine, into this vinegar, and eat it. This vinegar could also be drunk. And it was a refreshing drink that also helped cool down the body in the heat of the summer. So vinegar here was used as more of a cooling agent and to help, and also to spice up other foods if you wanted to mix it with bread. And then he says parched corn. Parched corn was grain that was taken from the stalks that they had just reaped, and they were roasted on a fire. So Boaz didn't take Ruth's corn and fry it up, but Boaz took the reapers' corn that they had reaped, and they roasted it on a fire. And it was eaten with bread or all by itself. So he says here, God's provided. As Boaz provided for Ruth vinegar and parched corn, food to eat, so also God provides for us. And we're going to get into verses 15 and 16 next lesson. But until then, walk with the Lord. I know he walks with you.